Imagine waking up to the sound of torrential rain pounding on your roof, a relentless storm that refuses to let up. You step outside, but what you once knew as familiar streets are now treacherous rivers. Cars are submerged, homes are swept away, and the very ground beneath you seems to be at the mercy of the water. This isn't a scene from a disaster movie, it's happening in the heart of Europe. Floodwaters are wreaking havoc, not only in one country but across multiple nations. Poland, the Czech Republic, Austria, and Romania are all facing catastrophic flooding, with lives lost, infrastructure obliterated, and entire towns submerged. In today's video, we'll dive deep into the tragic flood events that have swept across these countries, leaving destruction and uncertainty in their wake. Poland has been hit by some of the most devastating floods in recent history, and the toll is only beginning to show. Over the weekend, the southern and southwestern regions of the country were hit hard by torrential rain, leaving towns and villages completely submerged. Authorities are calling the situation dramatic. Rivers have swollen beyond recognition, and in some areas, water levels have surpassed those seen during Poland's historic 1997 floods that claimed 56 lives. In Kłodzko County, a region that has been one of the hardest hit, the first casualty was reported. Prime Minister Donald Tusk visited the area, now partly underwater, where the river had risen over 6 meters. He described the scene as dire. Rescue teams and emergency services have been working around the clock, but the damage is overwhelming. In the historic town of Głuchołazy, near the Czech border, a bridge collapsed despite desperate efforts by firefighters and locals. For hours, they worked tirelessly, stacking sandbags and using cobblestones to reinforce the structure. But in the end, the force of the floodwaters was too much. Grzegorz Wojciechowski from the Institute of Meteorology and Water Management declared the situation beyond dramatic, calling it a tragedy as floodwaters breached a dam in Strony Slaski. Rescue operations are underway, with helicopters airlifting residents trapped on rooftops in the Opolski province. The floodwaters continue to rise, and emergency services are stretched thin. With dozens of rivers above alarm levels, many fear the worst is yet to come. Meanwhile, in neighboring Czech Republic, the situation is similarly grim. On Sunday morning, Czech police confirmed that 4 people were missing, including a man who was swept away by the floods in the southeast. In the northeastern town of Głuchołazy, 3 people in a car were carried away by the force of the water and have not been found. The floods have left more than 260,000 households without power. The worst-hit region, Moravian-Silesia, is grappling with widespread evacuations and destruction. In Brno, large parts of the town, including its central areas, are underwater. Residents awoke to streets transformed into rivers, and by the time rescuers arrived, the damage was already extensive. In Brno, the country's second-largest city, emergency services had to evacuate over 180 patients from a local hospital, as it became clear that floodwaters would not stop rising anytime soon. Streets are impassable, and fallen trees and power lines have severed connections to key areas. The Opava River surged from 1 meter to nearly 5 meters, triggering a third-level flood alert. Transportation across the country has come to a halt, with around 40 railway sections shut down due to the flooding. The main Praga-Ostrava rail corridor, a critical lifeline for the country, is severely affected, leaving tens of thousands stranded as authorities scramble to restore basic services. Firefighters have responded to over 6,000 incidents in the past 3 days alone, battling not just rising waters but also the powerful winds that have uprooted trees and downed power lines across the country. The destruction is far-reaching, and residents are bracing for the possibility that it could get worse. Austria has also been deeply affected by this European flood disaster. In Lower Austria, the situation took a tragic turn as a firefighter lost his life while attempting to rescue stranded residents. Authorities declared the province, which surrounds Vienna, a disaster zone as rivers overflowed and floodwaters surged. The Vienna River, which typically flows gently through the city, had already reached alarming levels by Sunday morning. Just the day before, it had measured 50 centimeters, but now it was over 2.26 meters high and climbing. The river overflowed its banks in the Penzing district, flooding homes and cutting off roads. Many of the affected houses can only be accessed by boat, and evacuations were carried out in the early hours of the morning as water levels continue to rise. In the city center, the situation is dire. The catch basins meant to absorb excess water from surrounding areas are full, and now the Vienna River is flowing unchecked into urban districts. Streets in some parts of the city are a meter deep in water, and the power supply has been cut off in several neighborhoods, leaving thousands without electricity. Public transportation has been severely disrupted. Subway services have been reduced, and in some areas, entire lines have been shut down. The U4, U6, and U3 subway lines are barely operational, and construction on critical infrastructure has been halted due to the rising waters. Firefighters are working tirelessly to protect these lines using sandbags and dam beams, but the situation remains fluid, and further evacuations in the city are not off the table. Further to the southeast, Romania is also reeling from the impact of the floods. In the eastern counties of Głuchołazy and Devastate, 4 people were found dead after unprecedented storms swept through the region. Torrential rainfall has left hundreds stranded, with rescue services working around the clock to assist those trapped in their homes or vehicles. The victims, all elderly, were found in different localities, their homes inundated by the sudden floodwaters. The storms brought with them a deluge of rain that has transformed peaceful villages into chaotic disaster zones. The country is no stranger to severe weather, but officials say the intensity of these floods is unlike anything they've seen before. Across Europe, the scene is the same: rivers overflowing, streets submerged, and entire communities displaced. Poland, the Czech Republic, Austria, and Romania are united in their fight against a common enemy, devastating floods that show no signs of letting up. While rescue efforts continue, and emergency services work around the clock, the human and environmental toll is staggering. We can only hope that as the rain begins to ease, the waters will recede, and these nations can begin the slow process of recovery. Stay tuned as we continue to monitor the situation across Europe. And remember, in times of crisis like these, it's vital to stay informed, stay safe, and do whatever you can to help those in need.